In just 6 weeks during late 2025, federal agents arrested over 3,500 criminal illegal immigrants in Houston alone, including gang members, child predators, and individuals wanted for murder. That is more than 500 arrests every single week in one American city. But here is what most people do not know. Houston sits at the center of the nation's most intense immigration enforcement battleground, where local politics clash with federal mandates, and where the numbers tell a story that might surprise you. This is what Houston, Texas is really doing to fight illegal immigration. Houston is America's 4th largest city, home to over 2.3 million people. It sits just 350 miles from the Mexican border, making it a major destination for both legal and illegal immigration. What makes Houston's situation so complex is the divide between what the city leadership says it is doing, what it is actually doing, and how that narrative completely changed in November 2025. For most of 2025, Houston Mayor John Whitmire insisted his city was not cooperating with federal immigration enforcement. In January, he said, local police have not participated in federal efforts. In February, he said, Houston does not deal with immigration. Then in November 2025, everything changed. At a conference at Rice University, Mayor Whitmire made a stunning admission. When asked about Houston cooperating with immigration and customs enforcement, he said, I am not going to say that we are not cooperating with immigration and customs enforcement, because that is frankly not true. This admission sent shockwaves through Houston. Immigration advocates felt betrayed. City council members demanded transparency. But what was actually happening? Here is what reporting from the Houston Chronicle revealed. Throughout 2025, Houston police officers have been calling immigration and customs enforcement when they encounter someone with an open immigration warrant. In 2024, Houston police called immigration and customs enforcement just 9 times. In 2025, that number exploded to over 100 calls by mid-year. The vast majority of these calls happened during routine traffic stops. An officer pulls someone over for speeding or a broken taillight. They run the person's information through their system. A federal immigration warrant pops up. The officer calls Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Federal agents then come to take the person into custody. Most of these immigration warrants are administrative, not criminal. They are deportation orders, not arrest warrants for violent crimes. Someone came into the country illegally, was ordered deported by an immigration judge, but never left. Years later, they're driving in Houston, get pulled over for a minor traffic violation, and suddenly find themselves in immigration and customs enforcement custody facing deportation. One widely reported case from early 2025 involved a woman who called Houston police to report domestic abuse. When officers arrived, they ran everyone's information, found an immigration warrant, and called Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The woman who called for help ended up in federal custody. This case became a flashpoint in the debate over Houston's cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Mayor Whitmire defended the policy by pointing to state law. Texas law requires police officers to honor warrants from other agencies. The mayor argued that Houston cannot simply ignore warrants because they are immigration-related rather than criminal. That would be illegal and would expose the city to lawsuits. But critics point out that if Houston police are routinely calling immigration and customs enforcement during traffic stops, and if most of those calls result in arrests and deportations, then Houston is functionally cooperating with federal immigration enforcement, regardless of what officials call it. The numbers tell a striking story about what is actually happening in Houston. In January 2025, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested 1,077 people in the Houston field office region. By June, that monthly figure had increased 73% to 1,868 arrests. That is a dramatic escalation. What changed? According to data compiled by Syracuse University researchers, the profile of who was being arrested shifted significantly. In January, only 13% of Houston area immigration and customs enforcement detainees had no criminal charges or convictions. By June, that figure had nearly quintupled. The Trump administration had tripled immigration and customs enforcement's arrest quotas in May, and agents were casting a wider net to meet those numbers. Now, let us talk about the massive enforcement operations that have made Houston the epicenter of immigration enforcement in 2025. In late October 2025, Immigration and Customs Enforcement conducted a 10-day operation in Houston that resulted in 1,505 arrests. This nearly doubled the number from a previous week-long operation in August that netted 822 arrests, and tripled the number from a February through March operation that made 543 arrests. The escalation was dramatic and deliberate. Among those 1,505 arrests in October were 17 documented gang members, 40 aggravated felons, 1 convicted murderer, 13 sexual predators, 115 people charged with aggravated assault, 142 people with driving while intoxicated convictions, 55 drug offenders, 25 burglary and theft offenders, 31 weapons offenders, and 255 people who had illegally re-entered the United States after being previously deported. These are not sympathetic cases. These are people with serious criminal histories. One of the most dramatic arrests from that operation involved Marlon Oder Gomez Hernandez, a 29-year-old suspected MS-13 gang member from El Salvador. He had fled to the United States after being arrested in El Salvador with 6 other suspected MS-13 gang members for aggravated extortion. When Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents tried to arrest him in Houston, he ran inside a local laundromat, climbed through ceiling panels to get onto the roof, and became wedged in a sign on the side of the building. He was eventually extracted and taken into custody. Between October and mid-December 2025, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested 3,593 criminal illegal immigrants in Houston. Among those arrested were multiple convicted pedophiles, including individuals convicted of sexual assault of children, online solicitation of minors, and possession of child pornography. The Department of Homeland Security made a specific effort to target child predators in Houston. In the first 6 months of 2025 alone, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Houston Field Office arrested 214 individuals who had been charged or convicted of a sex offense involving a minor. That exceeded the number arrested during the entire 2024 fiscal year, which was 211. But Immigration and Customs Enforcement operations in Houston have not been limited to serious criminals. In late October, the agency conducted a traffic enforcement sweep that resulted in over 120 arrests in a single day. The agency posted on social media that they were clearing roads of dangerous, often unlicensed and uninsured, illegal aliens who should not be behind the wheel. Critics immediately pushed back, arguing that traffic violations are not the type of serious criminal activity that should be prioritized for deportation. Another controversial case involved a 16-year-old United States citizen teenager named Arnoldo Bazan, who was temporarily detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents during an enforcement action. The teenager told reporters he was assaulted by masked agents when they attempted to pull him and his father over. His father, who was in the country without legal status and had a prior conviction for driving while intoxicated, was later deported. Houston City Council member Edward Pollard condemned the arrest, saying that immigration enforcement should prioritize those who are dangerous and bring harm to the community, not families who contribute to the city. Let us talk about the political dimension of what Houston is doing. Mayor Whitmire is a Democrat running a Democratic city in a Republican state. He has tried to navigate a middle path on immigration enforcement, which has satisfied almost no one. In November 2025, the Harris County Democratic Party took the extraordinary step of reprimanding Mayor Whitmire and withholding future party endorsement of him. This was largely driven by his handling of immigration enforcement and his admission that Houston cooperates with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Mayor Whitmire fired back, arguing that he is following the law and that politicizing public safety is dangerous. He said that other cities that refuse to cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement have faced federal crackdowns, and he was trying to avoid that fate for Houston. The mayor made an interesting strategic argument in November. He said that if Houston tried to block immigration and customs enforcement operations entirely, the Trump administration would simply send 500 more agents to the city in response. By maintaining some level of cooperation on cases involving warrants and serious criminals, he argued, Houston was actually limiting the scope of enforcement and maintaining some local control over how operations unfold. The economic dimension of this debate cannot be ignored. Houston's economy is heavily dependent on immigrant labor, both legal and illegal. The construction industry, hospitality sector, restaurants, landscaping, and numerous other sectors rely extensively on immigrant workers. Many business leaders in Houston have privately expressed concern that overly aggressive immigration enforcement could cripple certain industries. One bail bondsman in Houston's East End, Mario Garza, noted that the intensity of enforcement in 2025 has surprised many residents. He said he has had conversations with people that have expressed they did not know it was going to be like this. Community advocates like Sergio Lira with Greater Houston LULASI have argued that while removing violent criminals makes sense, the broader effects on immigrant families are harmful. He said that this is an overreach of tactics and is harming the community in the long run. But there is another wrinkle to consider. Some local prosecutors have expressed frustration with immigration and customs enforcement operations because deportations can actually prevent justice for local crime victims. If someone is wanted locally for a crime, but immigration and customs enforcement deports them before the local case can be prosecuted, then victims never get their day in court. So what is Houston actually doing to fight illegal immigration? First, Houston police are cooperating with Immigration and Customs Enforcement when officers encounter individuals with federal immigration warrants, primarily during traffic stops. This cooperation increased dramatically in 2025 compared to previous years. Second, Houston is not conducting immigration raids or sweeps. Officers are not checking immigration status during routine interactions. The cooperation happens when warrants pop up in their system. Third, federal immigration and customs enforcement operations in Houston have escalated massively in 2025, with thousands of arrests and a focus on individuals with criminal histories. Fourth, these federal operations have also increasingly targeted individuals with no criminal record beyond immigration violations. Fifth, Houston's political leadership is trying to walk a tightrope between cooperating enough to avoid federal retaliation while not cooperating so much that they lose the trust of immigrant communities. The numbers paint a clear picture. Over 3,500 arrests in 6 weeks. Over 1,500 arrests in 10 days. Over 200 child predators arrested in 6 months. These are extraordinary figures that show Houston is at the center of a national immigration enforcement surge. The fear in immigrant communities is real and palpable. Multiple speakers at Houston City Council meetings throughout 2025 testified that they have seen mothers and fathers with no warrants and no criminal records dragged out of their cars in front of their children. The broader question is whether Houston's approach is working. Is the city actually safer because of increased immigration enforcement? There is no clear answer because the effects are difficult to measure. What is clear is that Houston's immigration enforcement reality in 2025 looks very different than it did in 2024. The scale of enforcement has increased, the cooperation between local and federal authorities has increased, and the political controversy has intensified. This is what Houston is really doing to fight illegal immigration in 2025.